Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Christine, and this is episode 4 of the Subnetting series, which is part 2 for CIDR, classless interdomain routing. Before we get started, let's review the practice questions from the previous lecture. If you've already gone through those questions, you can skip this part and move directly to today's topic. In the question, we have the network 10.0.0.0/8. According to the requirement, we need to create 15 subnets with 500 hosts in each subnet. This means we need 500 IP addresses per subnet, but we also need 2 more for the network and the broadcast address per subnet. In total, we need 502 IP addresses per subnet, and for 15 subnets, we need 7,530 IP addresses. Since in /8 we have a huge number of IP addresses available, we have enough room to create these subnets. First, let's find a prefix that will provide us with 502 IP addresses per subnet. /24 has 254 IP addresses available, which is less than our requirement. So let's move to /23. In /23, we have 510 usable IP addresses, which is sufficient for our requirement even with 8 extra IP addresses. That's it, which means we need to use /23 for each subnet. Let's take a look at each subnet's range. /23 in binary looks like this, where the last network bit is in the third octet. In the binary place value table, it is in the place value of 2. This means that the increments of 2 in the third octet will give us one subnet. The first subnet will be from 10.0.0.0 to 10.0.1.255. For the second subnet, add 2 to the third octet for the previous subnet's network address to get this subnet's network address, which gives us 10.0.2.0. And for the broadcast address, add 2 to the third octet of the previous subnet's broadcast address, which will give us 10.0.3.255. Hence, the range we get is 10.0.2.0 to 10.0.3.255. The same steps follow for the remaining 13 subnets. Doing that, we get the following range. You can pause the video here and go through the subnets or try to find them yourselves. Lastly, we have a few questions. First is to write the subnet mask for the prefix length we got. For /23, it is 255.255.254.0. Second is, what is the range of the second subnet? We got that in the last slide, which is 10.0.2.0 to 10.0.3.255. Third is, what is the network address of the second subnet? And from the range we know that it is 10.0.2.0 and the broadcast address is 10.0.3.255. We have the first usable address of the second subnet, which is the network address plus 1, which is 10.0.2.0 plus 1, which gives us 10.0.2.1. Lastly, we have the last usable address for the second subnet, which is the broadcast address minus 1, which is 10.0.3.255 minus 1, giving us 10.0.3.254. That's it. Now let's move to today's topic. In the last video, we discussed questions where we had specified number of subnets and specified number of hosts per subnet. Today we are going to find out how many equal size subnets we can make out of a network based on the prefix length, that is the largest possible subnets. To do this, the formula is 2 raised to x, where x is the number of borrowed bits, and borrowed bits are the bits that we are going to borrow from the host portion. Now let's check it out. Let's take /22 here. The blue portion is the host portion, and there are no bits borrowed in the host portion. That means we can make 0 subnets. Now let's take a look at /25. Here we have a bit borrowed from the host portion, which is represented in green. Here x equals to 1, and putting it in formula we get 2 raised to 1, which gives us 2 subnets. Moving on to /26. We have 2 bits borrowed from the host portion. Here x equals to 2, then 2 raised to 2 gives us 4 subnets. Now let's take a look at /27. In /27 we have 3 bits borrowed from the host portion. Here x equals to 3, and putting it in formula we get 2 raised to 3, which gives us 8 subnets. For /28 we have 4 borrowed bits. Here x equals to 4, and putting it in formula we get 2 raised to 4, which gives us 16 subnets. In /29 we have 5 borrowed bits. Here x equals to 5, and putting it in formula we get 2 raised to 5, which gives us 32 subnets. For /30 we have 6 borrowed bits. Here x equals to 6, so 2 raised to 6 gives us 64 subnets. For /31 we have 7 borrowed bits. Here x equals to 7, so 2 raised to 7 gives us 128 subnets. And lastly, for slash 32 we have 8 borrowed bits. Here x equals to 8, so 2 raised to 8 gives us 256 subnets. Now let's take a look at some questions. Let's start small. Here we have a class C network, that is 192.168.4.0/24, and we have been told to make 10 equal size subnets out of this whole range. That means we need to use all of the 256 IP addresses available and equally divide them into 10 subnets. Let's find a prefix length that will give us 10 subnets. In slash 24 we have 0 borrowed bits, so x equals to 0, that means 0 subnets, which does not meet our requirement. Let's move to slash 25. Here we have 1 borrowed bit, so 2 raised to 1 gives us 2 subnets, which is less than our requirement. Now on to slash 26. We have 2 borrowed bits, so 2 raised to 2 will give us 4 subnets, which is still less than our requirement. On to slash 27. We have 3 borrowed bits. With 2 raised to 3 we get 8 subnets, which is still less than our requirement. Let's move to slash 28. Here we have 4 borrowed bits. With 2 raised to 4 we have 16 subnets, which is enough according to the requirement. If we go any lower than slash 28 we will keep getting more subnets. Anyway, this means that we will get 16 equal sized subnets with slash 28. Now let's take a look at the range. Slash 28 in binary looks like this, where the last network bit is in the 4th octet, and in the binary place value table it is in the value of 16. That means with increments of 16 in the 4th octet we get one subnet. The first subnet is from 192.168.4.0 to 192.168.4.15. For the second subnet's network address, add 16 to the 4th octet of the previous subnet's network address, and we get 192.168.4.16. And for the broadcast address, add 16 to the 4th octet of the previous subnet's broadcast address, which will give us 192.168.4.31. The same steps follow for the remaining 14 subnets, and doing that we get the following subnet range. You can pause the video and go through these. Now let's find the number of hosts in each of these subnets. Slash 28 has 4 host bits available, that is the blue portion. So 2 raised to 4 minus 2 gives us 14 usable addresses, the ones that can be assigned to hosts. And 2 raised to 4 gives us 16 addresses in total, including the network and the broadcast address. Now let's take a look at another question. Here we have a class B network, that is 133.16.0.0/16, and we need to make 8 subnets. Let's try to find a prefix that will give us 8 subnets. In slash 16 we have 0 borrowed bits from the host portion. That means we cannot create any subnets. Moving on to slash 17 we have 1 borrowed bit. So x equals to 1, and 2 raised to 1 gives us 2 subnets, which is less than our requirement. Now in slash 18 we have 2 borrowed bits, x equals to 2, and 2 raised to 2 gives us 4 subnets, which is still less than our requirement. Moving further to slash 19 we have 3 borrowed bits, x equals to 3, and 2 raised to 3 gives us 8 subnets, which fits our requirement perfectly. That means we get 8 subnets with slash 19. Now let's take a look at the range. Slash 19 looks like this in binary, where the last network bit is in the 3rd octet, and in the binary place value table it is in the value of 32. That means with increments of 32 in the 3rd octet we get one subnet. The first subnet is from 133.16.0.0 to 133.16.31.255. For the second subnet, add 32 to the 3rd octet of the previous subnet's network address to get this subnet's network address, and we get 133.16.32.0. For the broadcast address, add 32 to the 3rd octet of the previous subnet's broadcast address, which will give us 133.16.63.255. The same steps follow for the remaining 6 subnets, and doing that we get the following range. You can pause the video and go through these. Now let's find the number of hosts in each of these subnets. Slash 19 has 13 host bits. So 2 raised to 13 minus 2 gives us 8190 usable IP addresses per subnet. These are the ones that can be assigned to hosts. And 2 raised to 13 gives us 8192 IP addresses, including the network address and the broadcast address per subnet. As usual, we have one more practice question which we will discuss in the next episode. But let me know if you do try this out by yourself. The next video is going to be the last part on CIDR and then we move on to VLSM. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like and leave a comment and subscribe for more updates. And I'll see you next time. Bye.